You're about to start in 1 minute. Thank you very much. Cool. All good? Everyone good? Okay, great. Thank you guys so much for coming today. It's really good to have you guys here. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Tom. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the startup Qlay. We are the hosts of the event today. We're going to have Ulrik and Amanda present later on their respective expertise and topics. But before that, I'd like to do a quick little self-introduction as well as the announcement of what we do and also what we will have in terms of future events. So we're called Qlay, and we're essentially a fully AI automated recruiting agency. A quick intro about myself. I was at McKinsey before this, and my co-founder was an engineer turned private equity analyst turned founder, two-time founder. And what we do is essentially we help other startups find and hire software engineers around the world. Currently, there's existing solutions like Upwork and Fiverr are out there, and a lot of startups tend to use them, but it's kind of a mumbo jumbo of different talents and expertise. So it's really hard to find the right person, and it ends up taking months on end. So we use AI to do a lot of a smoother recruitment experience, and we're able to not only cut time, but also the cost that you would have to pay existing recruiting agencies manually doing a lot of the recruiting processes. Whoops, okay. And since our beta launch last year, we've been growing 70% month over month. Most of it is from customer referral, so we're happy that our solution is helpful for other people. A little bit about future events. We're also hosting similar events on June 10th with an expert from Carta, who will talk a lot about fundraising and owning a startup and how much ownership you should have and things like that. And we'll also have Millie, a VP from a private equity firm. And on June 17th in San Francisco, we'll have a similar AI talk that we're hosting with a PM from Amazon, a researcher from Waymo, and also an AI scientist who is currently at Intuit. So should be exciting, mark your calendars, and hopefully you can all come. And last but not least, this is a little PR that we always do, but that's my LinkedIn right there. Please feel free to add me, as well as go to Qlay.ai. And if you book a demo within the next 48 hours, we're doing a big discount for everyone who's here in person today. Cool. That's about it from our end. Would love to quickly introduce our first presenter. First, I just got back from Japan last night, so I'm very jet lagged. Sorry. Our first presenter, Ulrik Hansen. And he's the co-founder and president of Encord, YC Winter 2021. He started out his career in the emerging markets race and FX team at JPM, and he holds a master's in computer science from Imperial College London. Maybe I'll finish my intro, or your intro, or maybe you can just do it. Okay. Well, Encord is a leading data development platform that enables AI teams to manage, curate, and annotate multimodal data, including images, videos, audio, documents, text. Since its founding in 2020, Encord has raised around 50 million across multiple founding rounds, with a 30 million Series B round in August 2024. Please give a round of applause to Ulrik. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks for being here, everybody. So, as Tom said, I'm Ulrik, one of the co-founders of Encord. We are a 100-person team based between London and San Francisco. We raised about $50 million in total, most recently a Series B in the middle of last year, and we've been fortunate enough to work with more than 200 of the world's top AI teams, and thankfully still do. A lot of them are amazing companies. And what I'm going to be talking about today is probably relevant for a lot of the people in this audience, is about how the company got off the ground and like how many twists and turns we took to get there. Maybe just quick show of hands, like how many of you are founders or looking to found a company? That's a good amount, amazing. So really, like, my objective is to give you guys a bit of a glimpse into the trial and tribulations of finding product market fit initially and scaling for us, in our case, of course, an AI company. Normally when I do this talk, a lot of the people tend to be investors and ML engineers and whatnot, and they've never really seen the pre-product market fit stage before, so they don't really know what I'm talking about when I go through this. But I'm sure if you guys are founding companies, you've seen some of this before. You might be thinking about starting a company. We'll see this in the future. So I'll basically be telling you guys the story about how we got from here, which is where we started back in 21, automating annotation for computer vision, to here, basically building a fully fledged data platform for AI development. And when I think about the Encord story, I've really broken it down into three separate, what I like to call epochs. There was first the build mode back in 21. That was when we were first starting out. We were building the product. We were like two guys sitting in our and actually my co-founder's parents' living room down in Southern California. To next, grinding. So that was when we raised a little bit of money. We were like trying to get the go-to-market engine off the ground. We had like a product that was like sort of working. It was still very, very buggy. We had a few customers. That was like definitely the hardest part. And then scaling, which has been for us like since 2023 and beyond. But starting with the building phase. So the big problem back in 21 for AI was really data quantity. So for a lot of the companies that were building AI systems, was getting enough high quality data into their model. So we had thought that we could solve this problem by solving it like an algorithmic programmatic approach. So the other alternatives at the time were sending like the data overseas, was getting labeled by teams in Philippines and India and elsewhere. And we thought that we could like automate a lot of this by applying this technique that we came up with that we called micromodels. So what you're seeing here is our pitch deck from back then. That was the problem slide here on the left that we had, and also like our YC demo day pitch. So as you can see from our website, our design skills has improved quite a bit, which is great. But of course, we had the mandatory sort of YC up and to the right MRR chart here, which at the time we, I think, landed around like 15K of MRR after a few months in YC, which was great because it allows us to raise a seed round back then at the time, and we continued to grow and then raise the Series A not so long after that. And maybe just a touch on the micro model approach. Again, like this is more of like a kind of technological thing, a little bit of a solution looking for a problem, if we're being completely honest. The idea was that we could train smaller models instead of a big model to run in a smaller environment and kind of tie them together to automate different parts of the data pipeline. We'd also built a nice UI with some visualizations, collaboration, and SDK to make it easy for people to adopt the use of micro models. It turns out that no one actually cared about using the micro models, and they ended up using the UI instead. So that was a big learning for us, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But looking at the sort of classic Paul Grimm startup curve here, I'm sure like some of you guys have seen this before. It kind of like goes through these like different phases of kind of like your view of your own startup, right? And like it generally ties closer to the emotional state that you're in as you're building your company. And we were like definitely very excited at this time because we were just coming out of YC. We raised the seed round, and then back then in 21, the funding market was extremely hot. So we also managed to raise the Series A just I think 4 or 5 months after the seed round. And we were the fastest Series A in like many of our investors' portfolio. So all very, very exciting. But maybe zooming out a little bit, how many of you guys like now trust the off-the-shelf models that you can use from like OpenAI and Anthropic and elsewhere? So there's one there. So there's a couple. I think it depends on what you're building. But it was very interesting looking back at the 21 and sort of like pre-LLM era. Pre-ChatGPT, like trust in AI was extremely low, and we were building automation for AI with our micromodels, so trust in automation for AI was even lower. So again, usage was pretty tenuous, like people were not really using the product and the micromodels as we expected. And so what we realized at the time was most of our customers didn't use the micromodels because they wanted to basically like be able to trust that the outputs of those micromodels were correct, otherwise it would take too much time to manually go and fix it. So we realized we had to solve this trust problem, the quality problem, before we could attempt to solve the automation problem. And so this is when we sort of like had this initial like idea of the startup, right? We were super excited, got extremely hyped up in our own heads about like what we were building and everything else. But then like reality like started settling in, and we'd only realized that we probably had to make a switch later that year, or like maybe in 22. So what happened was we repositioned ourselves as a data engine, and we launched this new product called Untitled to solve this like data, sorry, I should have said data quality problem here. We launched Untitled to help solve the data quality problem, because that was like, we saw that as like kind of the holy grail to get people actually to use the product that we intended. It was basically intended as this automated quality assessment tool over your training data. So the idea was that you could fully automate this pipeline by using the micromodels to automatically generate the training data, and then use Active to check that the outputs were correct. Now the problem was, and I think this is important at first, especially building a developer tooling product, was that the problem was extremely niche at the time. It was only really the Tesla deep learning engineers that actually like understood what we were doing, and the ones that were on the data engine team specifically. So we tried a few different things. We tried to reposition ourselves as a data operating system, but really to no avail. People just didn't really get it, and I think we probably recognized, or at least like in hindsight, can recognize that we were a little bit too early to the market here. So like just looking back at the startup curve here, we kind of went from the initial wearing off novelty into the trough of sorrow. I think this is where a lot of companies spend a decent amount of their life, and we definitely spent the better part of a year or 18 months going through the trough of sorrow. This is like not fun because you are trying to like do a bunch of different things, and like nothing is working, and you're trying to like iterate and like push new things out and everything else. So just massive grind, huge emotional toll, and it just takes a lot of like nerve and energy to make it through this phase here. But then like a few things started happening. With the way that we were iterating, we started actually like looking at what our customers were really saying. We started looking at the product usage. We started like looking at what they were actually purchasing the product for, and like what they were buying us for. And we started kind of like wearing off this idea of the micromodels, because like again, like they didn't really work, and I think that was like something we thought was cool, but like our customers like actually didn't really use. And then another thing happened at the time, which also ended up being a massive benefit to us. And this was like end of 2022. I don't know if you guys can remember what happened then. So that's when ChatGPT was launched as a research preview. And something very interesting happened when ChatGPT was pushed out. So the market, like all of a sudden, like started to really coalesce around one, AI being the next big thing, but also the different requirements for getting models in production, because there was a huge explosion in the number of companies that were like looking to deploy different models. The different Llama models came out, and so AI went from being this kind of like lukewarm thing. It was a bit of a fringe type of investment on the part of the VCs. And so it became like the next big platform shift, as you guys know, and I think is ongoing. And all of the early concept that we sort of like come up with, especially around like a lot of the infrastructure we built, not necessarily the micromodels, but all the UI and the SDK and like automated data pipelines and all that stuff, they started making sense to people. and people also started getting a sense for like what was actually needed to build these system. And there are a few different reasons for that, right? Like the foundation models, they made these things that were like previously unsolvable, solvable. And so like the number of like potential use cases that could be solved with AI kind of grew exponentially, and I think growing exponentially today until this day still. So we were kind of like in a position where we had to like capture the skyrocketing demand is how I put it here. In hindsight, obviously, like not as skyrocketing as it is now, which is great, but you're growing from low numbers. So that's really when we went into the scaling phase of the journey. So we saw all this like burst of activity, and what we really like had to do then was we had to start honing our product and our messaging. So we kind of like took a step back and thought like, okay, what are the things that will always be true in AI development? So a lot of the kind of externalities about the foundation model was like, oh, well, maybe the models can just solve everything. That turned out like not to be true, and I think to this day it's still not true, because there's always going to be this like last mile problem that like companies will need to solve to bring AI systems to production. And I think Tom and Toku might know about this. And this is like where a lot of the resource and money goes in at the end of the day. So some of the things that we sort of like conceptually thought of was, one, the models will continue to get better thanks to OpenAI and others that are pouring a lot of money into this, and we're all beneficiaries of that. We will always need to understand if the models work in production. That was extremely early and niche in 2022 and 2023, by the way, when we first started building out some eval tooling. And I think a lot of companies now building eval tooling, and that's, of course, like gotten a little bit competitive. But that was kind of like early innings at the time. And then finally, like you need to basically like be able to manage, orchestrate, and enrich your data for training and for fine-tuning. And now also for inference with the new inference set of models. So looking back to the original problem statement that we had, we'd actually encapsulated very well here what the product ultimately would end up becoming, and the market had kind of caught up and the market has coalesced, and we'd actually built a product, I think most importantly, that addressed our customers' like main pain points without like lying to ourselves. Again, like this slide here says nothing about micromodels. Some of the nuance in these have changed a little bit in that companies don't spend so much time labeling the data anymore. Now it's more just spent on like curation and like kind of wrangling the data and all the other things that you might want to do to get the data into the model. But still like very much aligned with what we're seeing still in the market. So what we kind of like, I guess, evolved the company into was solving the AI data problem in a single multimodal flywheel, which got us to where we are today. Work with more than 200 world's top AI teams across like a broad set of companies, enterprises, research labs, and different like applied AI companies, and also got us a billboard on Times Square, which is very cool. So now we've sort of like hit the promised land, if you will, and like made it through to the revenue growth phase. So looking back at what we've accomplished over the past couple of years and what I think I learned and some of the reflections is a few things, and I think if you've been to YC or watched any of the YC South School videos, will tell you, is like building a successful company is typically like multiple iterations over time. It's not a single insight. We thought it was going to be micromodels, it ended up being something else. The main thing here is the speed at which you iterate. So the more you iterate, the more shots you have on goal, the more chances you have of finding product market fit. So that kind of like tells you how important it is to move fast and be very adaptable to your own hypotheses. The second one, and I think this is very important for us, is to listen and adjust to what the market is telling you at every step of the way. I think for like a very early stage startup, the market is your main competitor, really, and it always wins. So you can have like a million different competitors that doing different things. The main thing is like if you're solving a problem for a customer and they're willing to pay you money for it, like that's a real thing. And if you can replicate that across like many different customers, you have a business, right? And like at the early stages, especially if you're solving a niche problem, which we definitely did at the time, we didn't really have much competition. We had like some competition, right, but we're doing slightly different things. So if you can build out like a strong moat in like a very small niche and then expand from there, that's how you can grow and at least like get to $1 million initially in revenue. The last point is that the journey is not linear, and I can just tell you guys like, categorically that it was not linear for us. Markets can take time to catch up, but of course, like the journey itself is very exciting, and you learn a lot, and you grow a lot as a person when you do it. So, what's next round? I was going to make a joke here about scaling our customer base in San Francisco. So it hasn't built myself, but I'm only half joking. What we're trying to do is a bit more profound. So revisiting some of our invariants in AI development here, we've kind of like gone back to the drawing board and thought like, what's the next big thing that we will tackle and solve? Like, how do we get from where we are now to being like $100 million, $200 million company? And to do that, again, like the size of the ultimate revenue scale that you can accomplish really like is determined by the size and the complexity of the problem that you're solving. So in general, like the founders that start the company, right, they determine how big the company can get, but the market determines like how big the company like will get. So we have to like find our next big thing. And for us, we kind of took a step back and thought really hard about that. And for us, it's not really just about making AI do what we want, but making it do what we really mean, right? So now you can basically get the AI to do what you want it to do by typing in a prompt, but it is sometimes very difficult to get it to do what you really mean. And that's where like a lot of the problems that we see in the future are going to come from. And this is like broadly categorized under the umbrella of AI alignment. So we kind of like crossed out the last one here because again, we went from like just training and fine tuning a couple of years ago. That was like where most of the resources and money was being spent into training, fine tuning, distillation, and inference. And you need to be able to do that in a continuous iterative data flywheel, which is what we call AI data alignment. And interestingly now, what we can see from our customer base is that the ones that are building the best AI models and the best products are the ones that are tying human usage. So that's, for the most part, inference from like using products. So if you're using an AI product, it produces like some outputs of the model, and the humans kind of attack with the product, which generates more usage data from the product itself, which leads to better models. And how well you do as a company depends on like how well you close the feedback loop between the human, which is like the product user, the model, and everything else in your AI system. OpenAI is an extreme example of this, right? Because every time you're using ChatGPT, you're giving it thumbs up, thumbs down. You might be like asking it to refine its kind of output, and all those things are continuing to make the ChatGPT product better, right? So they already have a huge head start and huge advantage in the market because they've done this really, really well. But until now, for basically like everyone but OpenAI, right, there hasn't really been a good way to solve this end-to-end. So that's essentially where Encord comes in, and that's what we are like now focused on as a company. And I thought like bringing it all together, that's very much like completes our journey for now. We don't know what's coming next, but in the early days of AI, it was data quantity, then it became data quality for scaling AI systems. And now we're going to basically data alignment for ubiquitous AI systems. So that was it for me. I'll pause there, have to answer any questions on that.
Yeah, maybe we'd love, okay. You just want to?
Yeah, I'll shout.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so transparent with the journey. I'm curious, you pivoted iterated your product multiple times, pivot points. How has your go-to-market strategy pivoted from when you started to now?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the hardest part of building like a go-to-market engine is like figuring out like where's the initial pipeline going to come from. For us, that was like basically like by writing blog posts and listicles. So at the time, it was like top 5 like image annotation tools, top 5 data creation tools, and like people would come inbound through those channels. That helped us to get from like, let's say like $1 million to like $3 million in revenue. But then like once you kind of hit the limits of that channel, you have to like start building out an outbound muscle. And so what we did was we started hiring a SDR team. I think we took probably like 3 false starts. So we had like 3 different versions of our outbound SDR team before like it actually started working. And like we sell a very technical product, and what we realized was that we just needed like very smart people to help sell the product. So we started hiring like people from like McKinsey and like investment banks and whatnot to like go and do the outbound. And that like brings a whole like different set of challenges, because there you actually need to like, you know, hone the messaging. You have to like make sure that you understand your ICP and like the buyer persona of a big company, and then you have to like target them in very specific messaging. And the thing I will say is that a lot of people say that outbound is dead, right? But I can just tell you guys, like outbound always works. Like we had so many doubts about it working in the beginning. We just didn't believe that it could actually work. But now it's our biggest source of pipeline. And so that's evolved. And now like we're doing a lot of like roundtable dinners. We're inviting all of our economic buyers into the same room. And like for the next phase, right, like we're thinking about partnerships and whatnot to be able to continue to scale revenue. I realized I skipped a step there, because the 0 to 1 phase was very much like founder-led sales. And so that was myself and my co-founder. I think being like a founder in an early stage startup, right, it sounds very glamorous, but like what you really are doing is mostly like SDR work. So basically like an outbound SDR for most companies. Are you guys kind of part of that?
It indeed is.
Great talks. Do you have plans to integrate synthetic data? The reason I mention it because as you mentioned as a SaaS company, a lot of industries such as finance having a really like data difficulty to finding the variable data. So that's very important.
So the sound quality is a little bad. I'm not sure I can understand.
Do you plan to integrate with synthetic? How do you use the synthetic data? Or
synthetic data?
Yeah.
Oh, synthetic data. I think it's because the speaker is pointed the other way. Yeah, I think like synthetic data is here to stay, and I think you want to like integrate your synthetic data generation machine into like your broader like data pipeline essentially. The problem with a lot of like synthetic data use cases is it's kind of like it's the snake eating its own tail, right? So you use like a model to generate synthetic data, but then you feed it into the same model, hope it improves. I think it works really well if you have like a bigger model generating the data, and then like a smaller one to learn for that. So the kind of model distillation type framework for the teacher and the student. And then I think for like other types of like models where you're like building vision systems, world models or whatever, it is straightforward to do it with like physics-based type environments because you can like do simulations. But for like simulating like a CT scan, MRI scan, and like simulating like very complex type of workflows that humans do, that could be like a lot harder. So for like the synthetic data companies that have done well so far, they focus on like a very specific niche. I think Applied Intuition is the best example of that. They built like this whole like simulation engine for autonomous driving. And I think like we'll probably see more coming out in the future.
I want to follow up too. I worked for Waymo before.
So the cost to generate for the simulations could be like very expensive. Besides the cost effective, but mostly it's availability. So
yeah.
Do you mean that using like one of a model to generate some of the synthetic data, and then using another model to fine tune, so on? Yeah.
I think it's the last part of the question. Sorry.
You mean you have to having the right data at hand, so that using those sample data to generate the synthetic data based on it?
I think it depends on the system that you're building. We've seen it done in like a number of different ways, but for like generative models in general, I think it depends on like what type of synthetic data for you guys. I imagine it's mostly like real world data, so you would maybe be relying heavily on simulation or like other types of trained models to do it. But for like a lot of the use cases that we've seen, it's, you know, sometimes like, you know, the data that you add like doesn't really add anything into the variance in the data set. And so it doesn't like actually add any value because you don't have any like new edge cases or like any unseen data from like the generated data. It just generally tends to come from like the same distribution. So I think like synthetic data is a little bit like human data in that it works really well if it is at the edges of the distribution. So if it's like edge case type data, or if it's like new data that the model hasn't seen before, that could work really well. But otherwise, if it just falls in like the big bell curve, like, okay, the model's already seen that data, that is a little bit trickier. So I think for like a lot of the AV use cases, at least that we work with, like simulation tends to be the one that does the best, because you can like simulate the physical environments that the vehicles operate in.
Got it. I see. So you can tie up and verify those the accuracy with the benchmark data too. If you might have a small personal question. So I saw that you started coding in 14 years old. Can you elaborate that, how you get advanced into that?
How I got into AI?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a long story. So I started coding when I was like 13, 14. So that was like back in the early 2000s or like mid 2000s. So back then it was like the LAMP stack. So that was PHP, set up an Apache server, and used like a MySQL database. So it was like the stack at the time. And it was funny because Facebook was started then, right? And then ended up building a whole like system around that. So I taught myself how to code at the time and spent like my formative years doing that. But then went on a bit of a detour into finance. I studied, computer science and economics, but went into finance because that was like the ambitious thing to do where I'm from Denmark originally. And so, that was like what everybody wanted to do, right? And there wasn't like really much of a startup ecosystem there. I think had I been like in more a startup ecosystem, things probably would have been different. But I spent a couple of years in finance, which was helpful because it kind of helps you hone your skills in a number of different ways. But I saw all the exciting developments in AI, so I decided to leave my job and started doing research at Imperial College, where I did a computer science master's afterwards. And so that's how I initially got hooked on AI.
Okay, we'll take one more question. Okay.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I came. I want to ask you, how do you navigate in a field where there's competitors like Scale AI, and they came out like 5 years before you guys, and they framed the problem in a very similar way. So how do you navigate? How do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as a question we get a lot from the VCs. I think competitors, kind of going back to the point around like the market being your main competitor, I think that's very much true. Like not at any scale, but definitely like still at our scale. So Scale AI specifically, like we focus on an entirely different part of the market. So Scale AI is going after OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, all the hyperscalers and all the frontier labs for their business. We don't really do any business with any of the hyperscalers and the frontier labs because we see it as like very fleeting revenue, very project-based revenue. We principally work with like Fortune 500 companies or applied AI companies that are building these like basically like the iteration cycles between like the model, the data, inference training, and their like application at the end of the day. Of course, like the hyperscalers and frontier labs objectives are like quite different because they're building these like massive foundation models. We build a business by just focus on like selling to those. So enterprise, some of the leading AI application companies like Cetisia, Flawless, and all those companies, they need like data infrastructure to support their needs. Not just labeling, that's really just one part of the workflow.
Got it.
Awesome.
So focusing on a different part of the market, really that didn't scare you when
When we got started?
yeah.
No, not really. I mean, I think I think Scale has built a basic business, just focus on supplying like the human labor to the big frontier labs and the hyperscalers. But for us, like we always saw that as like, again, like kind of going back to the initial problem that people have, the quantity problem, data quantity problem. That was like the most urgent thing at the time. But now the problem space has kind of like evolved, right? And like we've evolved with the problem space. So we've also like added features and products that can help solve these additional problems. So I think you shouldn't be so worried. I mean, it's almost better that there's like a big incumbent in the market when you go after it. If it's a big startup incumbent, that's probably worse than like a big enterprise. Like I would like dream of starting a company in a space like, I don't know, something like super old school and outdated. I don't know, there's like a bunch of companies that are like now going after like nursing homes or like they're building, things for like these like very antiquated industries. And they're like, there's a massive incumbent, right? They make billions of dollars in revenue, but they're just so slow moving and old school that like they're so easy to compete with. But there's always gonna be like, if there's a problem, there's a market and there's like a better solution to solve a problem typically. Now we're not seeing that with Google, right? They're being disrupted because now there's a new solution to the search problem that hadn't been before.
Well, congratulations on your success and Series B.
Cool. Well, I'll hang around afterwards. But thanks so much.
Awesome. Please give a round of applause to Ulrik. Thank you. Next up, we'd like to invite Amanda Hua. She's the Senior Director of Software Engineering at Anywhere, an American publicly traded real estate services company. She's a seasoned technology executive with over 20 years of leadership experience across Fortune 500 companies like Apple, PayPal, Rivian, Ripple, DirecTV, and HP, delivering scalable solutions in e-commerce, payments, cloud, blockchain, and more. Please give it up for Amanda Hua.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda. That's a really great talk, and I definitely second the fast iterations and the data quality, and also the entire feedback loops about the fine tuning. That's all the very key on how we can be able to evolve the data models for us to be able to solve the problems for specific use cases. So I'm Amanda, and I'm the Senior Director at Anywhere Real Estate. Anywhere Real Estate is a parent company of Coldwell Bankers, Century 21, and and also many other brands. We also own our own titles and the relocation companies. So it's a real estate company. It's not a technology company. I always say it's a technology-enabled companies, but nowadays, given all the AI has been, all the changes happening so fast, and we also, since the ChatGPT, since 2022, we also been very much actually trying to adopt the latest technologies, all the changes with the AI, and after I joined Anywhere about like a year and a half ago, and I took a big step forward to just lead the transformations to break away our legacy systems where there was lots of constraints and complexities, and just building into the new microservices, event-driven microservices architecture with the scalability and agility for us to build into the new leads platform, where we manage the entire life cycles of the leads and the referrals from all different touch points for our agents and brokers and the customers. So the first thing actually, before we started building into the AI, into the new microservices, we thought we actually have to really start laying out very good foundations on the new platforms. And as I started building the new engineering teams and adopting the engineering best practices, and also doing pretty much revamp the entire technology stacks on the new platforms, then we'll be able to, and also leverage the Copilot as our coding companion for our entire life cycles of the software development, so be able to help us accelerate the software development. And then after we get all the readiness of the platform with all the solid foundations and the building blocks, now we are starting this year, we are reimagining the new intelligent contact center services for our ops to work with our customers. So after I joined, shortly after I joined Anywhere, I proposed to adopt AWS Connector to build the new contact center services. And the reason, it's just like any other initiatives we do. We need to do the build versus buy and analysis about why do we need to build our new contact center services. And in general, I shared also the decision framework with the entire companies about why should we actually really build this rather than just buy things off the shelf. And the main takeaway over there is when we are actually really building something core to our business, then we should actually really build our own technologies and also build our experiences. If it's a commodity, then we should just buy. And the reason being adopting the AWS Connector is the AWS Connector is a cloud native and the AI ready since the day one. So we'll be able to really leverage the entire ecosystem of AWS for us to build the new intelligent contact center services experiences. And then we also be able to really leverage all the enterprise and the governors are part of the entire toolkits from the AWS for us to make sure our applications are ready for us to be able to deploy it in production, because everybody knows the real estate is pretty regulatory heavy. There's a lot of the compliance and also the legal requirements. And then the last one is really we want to have the ecosystem to leverage all the managed services so on AWS, so we'll be able to really customize our solutions, even exactly tailored for how we like to build our business workflows and extend the user experiences, how we'll be able to really help our customers as efficiently and as possible. So here is a journey and also where we're at and where we're headed to. So as everybody knows, since starting from 2021, it's all about contextual agentic AI. And for us, it's not only just about the automation, it is about the building the AI agents really understand grounded in the business logics, business context for us to be able to use the all of this AI, the knowledge bases, right, and also the data we have accumulated over the years for us to be able to help drive make the decisions and take the actions for the AI agents on behalf of the human. So we are currently in the middle of the journey, and it's not just a chatbot and for the automation. Our AI agents really listens and also responds and also be able to learns and adapts. So ultimately, as we continue iterating, building into the new microservices with all the business workflows, we also be able to just improve on the intelligence of our AI agents, given every conversations they have with the customers. So here is actually what you will see in action before I show the live demo of what you are going to see is how the Amazon Q as the AI agent work with our agents to help our agents to work with the customers. So basically, as you are saying it's gonna be a live call between my team. One engineer is like the agent, another is a customer. In that live call, you can see how the Amazon Q be able to listen in the conversation and pop up the insights, prompt the insights for the agents, given the knowledge base we train the AI models, and then be able to personalize the response and also with the prompts and also the customized information. It's actually really be able to learn as the conversation unfolds. And then one more thing is we also leverage the sentiment analysis AI model to detect the emotions during the conversation. So if things are actually happening with some given certain thresholds of the scores, positive or negative, and we can actually also have the managers to step into the call.
Once he does receive it, he'll be on mute so that you can listen to the conversation. Once he does receive it, he'll be on mute so that you can listen to the conversation as well.
So I'm receiving a call on my phone. I'm going to go ahead and answer it. Hello?
This is Anywhere Real Estate calling for your appointment to speak with one of our agents. An agent will be with you shortly. Basic queue.
Hi, thank you for calling Anywhere Real Estate. This is James. How may I help you?
Hi, James. I had a few questions about the process of purchasing a home in Anchorage.
Yeah, sure. I can definitely help you out with that. And just to clarify, you said that was Anchorage, Alaska, correct?
Yes, Anchorage, Alaska. I saw that Anywhere offers an incentive benefit based on the closing cost of the home. I'm looking to purchase a home at around the $400,000 price range. Could you let me know what the incentive would be?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Let me check on that here for you. Just got to bring up our policy with that program. Okay, so unfortunately, Alaska is classified as a non-cash reward state, which means unfortunately there won't be any monetary incentive provided for that. But we can go ahead and definitely help you out with the purchasing process still.
Oh, that's not good to hear. Is there anything you could do about that?
With this specific program, we unfortunately can't provide any cash incentive. There may be other options that we could look at. So I do apologize for that. And I know this can be a concern for you moving forward. But like I said, we will provide you the best customer service and walk you through every step of the way.
Okay, I'm gonna look into some alternative options. If I'm not ready to move forward with the process right now, what are the next steps? Could you place me on hold or something like that?
Sure, let me see here. You aren't quite ready. We are able to place a hold on your file. And I believe it is a 30-day hold, but we can go ahead and extend it for up to 60 days. So in that time frame, if you just want to update us and let us know when you're ready to move forward, then we can go ahead and resume that process then.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, just put my file on hold and I'll get back to you in 30 to 60 days to let you know where I'm at.
Okay, sounds good. Is there anything else I can help you out with today?
No, that's all. Thanks, James.
All right, thank you for calling. Have a good day. Okay, so that was the general just mock phone call. I hope you guys saw that Q was suggesting certain prompts that we can go ahead and click into if we aren't sure. It'll give us the information that we need and also cite the sources that you can bring up. you might have noticed on the left-hand
Okay, so I cut the video not to the very end, but you get the gist of the what this really be able to help the agents to work with the customers with much more confidence and help them find the information. So right now, if they prior to using the Amazon Q and the AWS Connect, the new concierge experience, usually when the agents work with the customers, at least they have like 4 or 5 windows open with all the different documents for them to look up information as the customers calling them, asking the questions. And right now you can see in the centralized workspace, everything is all just very easily for the insights to pop up right in front of the agents for them to be able to help answer the questions. And also all the sentiments analysis are real time for us to be able to really leverage the score of the sentiment analysis to figure out how the conversation goes. That if there was any issue and somebody can step right into the conversation to help address the issues, answer the questions, also at a real time. So this is really just a game changer for us to be able to help our agents to work a lot more efficiently with our customers. So in the end, it's we just get started, but you guys can also see the impact, and we are also very part of the second what the previous speaker just mentioned about the iteration, and I always also very key on measure and learn. For us, is all also about the fast iterations and get the real feedbacks from the customers and from all of these real conversations as quickly as we can, and then we measure and we learn, and hopefully to be able to also adjust the goals and adjust the experiences so we can keep improving and make this just work better and better for our agents. I have a couple more slides about some technical architecture. I think I probably can skip those for today. And if you guys have any questions.
Anybody have a question? Oh, okay. All right. Let me put you over there.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this presentation as well. They say that agents are going to be the reason for the next wave of layoffs. Jobs are becoming much more efficient, effective. I can see how your new Amazon system really allows call centers to be really effective. So that's really great. It's cost savings for the company. Do you see other jobs in your industry that can also benefit from AI agents? Are there are real estate agents themselves going to benefit? Are there other aspects of the business that are coming next?
Yes, certainly. With the AI, I think this is applicable to lots of the industries. On the technology side, we certainly also see the displacements about different demands on the engineering resources and also the skill sets. And also I think on the real estate side, certainly there are also need to retool. That's also from the overall company's perspective. They are also asking, really advocating everybody actually leverage the AI as tools, for both, not only just on the technology, for the business teams, for the product teams. We want to use AI as another really compelling tools to help people be able to get things done more efficiently. Then in the meantime, there can be the other things human can create, can use our creativity to be able to actually do things differently. So as you know, lots of especially in the real estate, certain things are still very much rely on the business relationships, and what are the tools help to be able to really just make lots of things make more efficient, but then the human can focus on how to add the additional creativities and the human touch between building the relationships. That's also very important.
Hi, Amanda. That was wonderful. Curious about who defines the first call resolution. So I'll give you an example. The call that you had demonstrated.
Yes.
You know, it's a completion of a call.
Yes.
You know, do you think that was the customer would say that was a satisfactory? Like who's determining that in your system, and whether your perspective that was a completion of the customer's outcome that they were looking for?
Oh, very good question. So first call resolution in our context, there are different categories. We do have categories. So we also have some rules, right? So that's gonna be in here. When I say, you know, lots of actually besides the knowledge base, the call scripts, the knowledge bases, we build into the AI models. We also have the dynamic data from our microservices. That's actually also used for the training sets of the data to train the data models about the business, what are the business rules are, right? Given, because it can be very different between this broker from another broker. So from the customer's perspective, in this context, is the first thing is if they have questions, do we actually have answers to help the customers get all the answers that they are looking for? And in the meantime, if they need to have a certain follow-up actions, and we actually also right now, because we use all these AI models as a part of the call contact flows, we also be able to really have all those real-time analytics leverage them to create the tasks automatically along with our workflows. So for example, if the agent might ask specifically, explicitly about, do you want us to call you back? And the customer say, yeah, I would like you to call me back because I want to learn more. And then we will, given that conversation, we will automatically schedule a call on behalf of the agent to call the customer, call them back. So all of this is just, you know, there was things just to make the customers also feel very, very happy. That's the satisfaction score, right? Certainly certain scores are needed to come still from the service, from the human to confirm, but there was also the models we are using for the sentiment analysis, and we also do the evaluations, cross model evaluations to make sure, you know, we don't see the bigger deviations. And also this is enterprise solutions, so we do need to set up a very good guardrails with certain criteria up front for us to make sure, you know, things are just working as expected. And whenever, if there was things are not as clear, we will engage the people right away, and the right people right away, and afterwards we can use those information to actually continue improving the models and let the models make better decisions, more accurate decisions next time.
Awesome. Maybe you have time for one more. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for presenting today. You mentioned one thing, that real estate is a highly regulated environment.
Yes.
So I was curious in terms of moving fast and innovating fast. How do you do that in a highly regulated environment like real estate?
Yes, very good question. So that's what I actually earlier I didn't really dig into it, but just in general, there was a certain best practices from the engineering aspect, and also from just overall from the product and also from the business. That's considered as a domain knowledge and or accumulated over the years. So and including some process. So we certainly, for example, have over the time we have built a good knowledge base. It's just not as holistically connected on the platform, right? Because it's real estate. It's it's all very much driven by the business. That's why how things. We have lots of the data, but they are kind of segmented. So the first thing I needed to do actually really to start building the platform for me to be able to manage the data holistically on the platform. But in the meantime, also apply all the best practices like privacy by design, security by design. All of this is really gonna help for us to be able to plan things ahead of the time. And so we be able to not avoid, fall into some of the issues later. And then also we are very much like have the rely on certain process for us to be able to make sure, the security related requirements, compliance related requirements are considered the priority, right? So we don't really just do things and then break them. We cannot afford to just break things, right? Fix it, and we have to make sure all the risk analysis needed to be planned ahead of the time.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please give a round of applause to Amanda. Okay, well, that's actually the end of it. Please feel free to hang around for a little bit. We still have drinks and pizzas. Again, thank you all so much for coming today. And yeah, hopefully you will get to network a little bit. And that's it. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.